Hello there, welcome to another video. Today we're gonna do a, it's gonna be a quick one I think. We're gonna do some bracket builder predictions, I think, just as a quick fun video to do. I probably won't spend too long on this one, but yeah. I can't do a very traditional predictions video this week just because it's the Summer Showdown and, you know, it's gonna be difficult to do other than the first couple matches in each region. So yeah, other than that, I don't think I have anything else to say, so might as well just get into it. So the first match, Valiant versus Defiant, I think should be a fairly easy one. I reckon Valiant are going to look a little bit better coming in this time than they did against Paris. And against Defiant as well, Defiant just haven't been looking that great recently. I think this one has to go the way of the Valiant. We got a rematch of Gladiators against Justice in the next match. I mean, Justice just barely managed to beat Boston, but I don't think they're good enough yet to take it to the Gladiators. So this one's gonna go the way of the Gladiators, I think. Then we have Mayhem versus Outlaws, again another rematch. I think this one has to, it probably has to go the way of the Mayhem. Honestly, I think the more the Mayhem play this meta, the better they're gonna look in it, and they already looked really good at it anyway. So I would honestly say Mayhem is the most likely to take it to the semifinals out of all these teams, I'd say. Yeah, I feel pretty confident saying that. Maybe Paris, but yeah, if I had to make an early prediction, I would say Mayhem are probably the most likely to take it to the semifinals. But here we have Paris versus Fuel. Now, I have a bit of a hot take about this one. This one should definitely be a win for Paris, in my mind. The way they were playing, the way they already understand this current meta, I think this should definitely be a win for Paris. However, I think if Decay's back for the Fuel, Decay has an insanely good Genji on him, and I think if they were able to play Decay on that Genji to just be as good as I know he can be on the Genji, and then have Onigod there to play the hit scan too, they might actually have a really good fighting chance. So I think as a hot take, Dallas might actually end up winning this one. As a massive upset, Dallas might actually end up winning this one. Don't sleep on Dallas going into this match. That being said, I still think Paris are going to be the overall winners. Now, here's the confusing part, because which teams do I think will pick which teams? Generally speaking, I think they're going to just pick whichever they think is the easiest team to play against, which is, you know, it's what we saw in the May Melee. It's generally just the smarter thing to do. So what I think is going to happen is Shock are going to pick the Gladiators, which I don't really have a doubt about that. I think Shock will just end up picking the Gladiators. I think Atlanta Reign, there's two possible things that I can see them picking. I can either see them picking Paris because they think it will be easier to beat Paris than Florida, or they'll pick, sorry, what am I talking about? Paris. Valiant, because they think it'll be easier to beat Valiant than it will be to beat Florida, which I think would be the smart thing for them to do. Or they'll pick Florida as a kind of grudge match thing, because in the May Melee, in the last tournament, Florida actually picked Valiant as their, Florida actually picked Atlanta as their team to play against, just as a sort of, to show off that they're better than the Atlanta Reign. So maybe as a grudge thing, they might actually end up picking Florida Mayhem. I can see a team like Atlanta Reign doing that. However, I'm going to do what I think would be the smart thing for them to do and pick Valiant for them. Next, Philadelphia Fusion. They don't have many other options. I think they would probably... if I was in their situation, I would pick Paris, just because I think Florida... just because I think even though Paris looked really good at the current meta, I think Florida will have a higher peak on this meta, and I think if Fusion are smart about it, they'll probably recognize that. Plus, they already have a positive win record against Paris Eternal, so they'll probably know what to expect going in. Whereas they've had one match against Florida and they lost it, so I don't know if they would be smart to pick Florida. So yeah, I think Fusion would probably pick Paris, and then finally the Titans will be forced to go with Florida Mayhem. And then how will the matches go? Well, I think the first one is easy enough. It's going to be a Shock 3-0. Like, it will be a Shock 3-0. There's no doubt in my mind that Shock will manhandle the Gladiators. Next up, Florida versus Titans. I think, again, this is probably another 3-0. The Florida should probably just absolutely manhandle the Titans with how they look right now. Next up, Philadelphia Fusion versus Paris Eternal. I think if Fusion were to play EQO, and EQO looked as good on Genji as he has previously, they could actually have a chance of winning this. But right now, the way I see the Fusion, I don't think they're a great team. I don't think they play particularly well together. I think even though they are incredibly good individually, I don't think they'll be good enough to take it to Paris right now, just because of how well Paris understand this meta. And obviously, Sparkle is such a good Genji player, and Genji's so prominent right now. I'm gonna have to give this match to Paris. And finally, Atlanta Reign. Now, Atlanta Reign and Valiant. This one I actually think is going to be incredibly close, just because I don't think Atlanta Reign looked particularly bad recently. And with Erster coming in being able to play the Genji, this is actually an incredibly good meta for Atlanta Reign. And if there's ever going to be a time for Atlanta Reign to shine this season, it is now, because this meta is so perfect for them. Whereas with Valiant, this meta is really not the greatest for them. Valiant, I do think, have a trick up their sleeves, though. I think they can take two routes, I think, right now. They can either keep playing the Tracer comps with Shax on Tracer, that they've been doing really well on, but so far haven't worked so great this meta, which I think would be the worst option. I think they have KSF on the bench, who's been playing a lot of Genji. In ranked, at least on his stream, he's been playing a lot of Genji, which sort of leads me to believe that maybe he's been practicing Genji in scrims as well. So they might come out with KSF on Genji. Do I think that'll be enough to beat Atlanta Reign in their perfect meta? Honestly, I don't know, because I don't know how good KSF actually is on the Genji. So until we see KSF playing Genji, if they do choose to play KSF on Genji, I won't really be able to answer that definitively. But what I do think they could do really well, actually, is to run Shax on Torbjorn. Because there's a bit of a debate going on right now that maybe the reason why a lot of Torbjorn was being played in the APAC region last week was because they've already sort of gone through the motions of seeing teams playing Genji, and then have worked out that Torbjorn is actually a really good counter to teams playing Genji. And if that is the case, and Torbjorn is going to be the sort of alternative to running the Genji meta right now, Valiant actually might look really good on that. Shax has been a very, very good Torbjorn previously, and then we already know how good the rest of the team works together. I'm going to actually go for the upset. I'm going to pick Valiant as a sort of sleeper pick to beat Atlanta Reign. If I didn't want to do a hot take right now, I would say Atlanta Reign would probably win this one, just because they can have Erster on Genji, and it is an absolutely perfect meta for them. But I'm going to choose to believe in the Valiant and say that they're going to maybe come out with Shax on Torbjorn and possibly try to counter the Genji meta. Do I think that'll work against Atlanta Reign? Probably. Do I think it'll work against Paris Eternal? I guess you'll wait and find out. But who do I think is going to win out of Shock and Mayhem? Even though I said Mayhem are a sleeper pick to go to the finals, I do not think they're going to beat Shock. If they were picked by any other team before Vancouver Titans gets to pick them, I would have them as a shoo-in to go to the finals, because if they were picked by either Fusion or Reign, I think that they would be able to beat both of those teams, and that way they would absolutely probably be in the finals. For me personally, I would say they would definitely get to the finals if that was the case. But since they go up against Shock in the semifinals, it's just not a chance for them. Shock are more than likely going to be able to beat them. I think there's maybe a small percentage chance that maybe Shock don't play the Genji meta, or they try to play the Torbjorn meta and it doesn't work quite as well. There's maybe just that slim chance that Florida are able to beat them, just because they might be more acquainted with the playing the Genji right now. But I still don't think it can happen. Shock just look way too good now. But yeah, moving on. Paris versus Valiant, the last match in the semifinals. I think Paris win this one, honestly. I think even if Valiant were to do the Torbjorn strategy against Paris, Paris just understand this meta way too well. And even though I think if I was to judge them both as teams overall in terms of team play, Valiant is the better team. The meta right now is just so good for Paris, purely because they can have Sparkle on the Genji to just go insane. I don't think Valiant playing the sort of Tourbillon counter strategy is going to be enough. I think Paris probably win this one. And then we get to the finals. I think it's obvious who I'm going to pick to win. It's going to be the Shock. It has to be. Oh, move me on to Asia. It's going to be the Shock. It has to be. I think there's, again, a very, very slim chance that maybe the Shock just doesn't understand this Genji meta quite as well as Paris do. And maybe Shock don't have as good of a Genji player as Paris do. But at the same time, it's the Shock, man. They just look so good and so well coordinated. I can't comfortably not say that they're gonna win. Like, I can't, actually. I cannot be comfortable in saying that they won't win. I feel like the only way I'm comfortable with this bracket is by having Shock as the winners. They're just so good, they have to be. Yeah, so this is my NA bracket. Moving on, though, to the APAC region bracket. This one I think is going to be a little more simplified, just because the APAC region has been that bit more straightforward recently. There's been a couple of upsets, but it has been relatively straightforward recently. With the APAC region, it really comes down to this question. Do I think more Tourbillon is going to be played, or do I think more Genji is going to be played this time around? And I think it's kind of a 50-50, depending on what team I'm looking at. So if I'm looking at London Spitfire, I've heard that Shui is a very good Genji. I've heard this, but I've not seen it, and so I'm not confident in saying that London would be comfortable running the Genji meta. However, we have seen London run Tourbillon comps before and not looked that bad running them, so... But then I look at Seoul Dynasty and I just think they tend to play better when they have more meaning behind their matches anyway. And they also have Prophet on their team who's looked previously in previous seasons. He's looked amazing on the Genji. And also just every other role on this team is getting to play their perfect heroes. I feel like it goes against what I think of both of these teams right now in terms of power rankings. But I feel like I have to give the edge to Seoul here. I think with more meaning behind their matches, they're just going to look better and better. And with Genji coming into play, Prophet being able to play one of his best heroes, probably what his best hero is actually, Genji, I just think Seoul are going to look a lot better for it. And I don't know if London are going to be able to survive this meta. Guangzhou Charge versus Chengdu Hunters, though, I think this is a very straightforward one. Chengdu will probably power up a little bit just because they get to run Jinmu on Genji, and it's one of Jinmu's best heroes. He's always looked incredibly good on Genji. And Guangzhou as well are going to be a little bit weaker going forwards, potentially, just because they've never really had a Genji player. Unless Nero or Eileen is really good at Genji and I just don't know it. I don't think they have a particularly great Genji player on their team, and so when it comes to playing around a sort of Genji brawl like we're seeing now, I don't know if Charge are going to be able to do it. So the question is, do I think Hunters are going to look good enough with Jinmu on Genji to beat the Charge, who don't have a particularly great Genji player? I don't think I do, and part of that is because I think Charge do have a really good Tourbillon player in Nero. Yeah, I just believe in the Charge, honestly, to run the sort of Tourbillon counter strategy, and if not, if they do end up playing Genji, I actually reckon they'll probably be pretty good at that too. I have absolutely no reason to believe that they would be good at that because I don't know if they have a good Genji player on their team. But I do think that the Chargers looked so good this season overall that they should be able to adapt to it. And especially against the Hunters too, they should be able to adapt to it. Yeah, that's going to be a Charge win for me. This one at the bottom here though, New York Excelsior versus Hangzhou Spark, is definitely the closest one for me. Because I think both of these teams have looked pretty even in terms of how good they are. In terms of their individual skill. I think they both have really good Genji players on their teams in terms of Architect and in terms of Haxel. This one is definitely the closest, but for me right now, I feel like I need to give the edge to New York. Spark haven't looked great, or they've still looked good, but they didn't look great last week, and so I don't know if I can really comfortably 100% be sure in saying that they would be able to take on New York Excelsior, especially when New York finally have a Genji meta to play in. I mean, they have Haxel to just come in and play Genji. Haxel, in my opinion, is the best Genji player in the whole league. So, yeah, I think for New York, as long as they read the meta well and as long as they play the right players, this should be this match here should be a win for New York. Yeah. Moving on, Shanghai versus Seoul Dynasty. I don't think Seoul have a chance. It's going to be a Shanghai win for me. Unless Seoul, again, just ridiculously, massively power up because there's more meaning behind the matches. I really don't see them having a chance against Shanghai. Shanghai have shown, or Fleta in particular has shown, that he is capable on not only the Torbjorn, which we saw him play this weekend, and he looked amazing on, but we know Fleta to be an incredible Genji player too. And with how Fleta's been playing this season, he's my personal MVP for this season. I really don't doubt that he's going to be able to amaze people on the Genji. So, yeah, for me, it's a fairly straightforward Shanghai Dragons win. I don't think Seoul particularly have that big of a chance against Dragons right now. They just look so good. It's a similar situation with the Shock. They just look so good. I don't think any team really stands a chance against them. New York versus Charge, though, is another one that I think is going to be incredibly close. And again, it's just down to the Charge just not having that Genji player. I mean, unless they can play Torbjorn, and they do try to counter-strat it with Torbjorn, and they do well doing that, I don't know if they're going to have as much of a chance. I will say they did manage to beat the New York Excelsior when they were playing Genji this weekend, but New York were also doing some very strange things with their roster, let's say. So I put that loss more down to New York doing some really weird things, more than it's down to Guangzhou just being just outplaying New York and outstratting them with the Torbjorn strat. Honestly, this one is so ridiculously close, it genuinely could go either way. I'm going to say it goes the way of New York, just because I think they've had a week to reflect on how they should play the meta currently, and I think they have such a good Genji player in Haxel that they really shouldn't have any excuses if they go in and they lose. Versus Guangzhou, yeah, I think it's going to have to be a win for New York, honestly. And then the final match, I don't think it's going to be particularly close. I think it's going to be a Shanghai Dragons win again. No, lol. I think it's going to be a Shanghai Dragons win again, just because they are so good right now. And this meta, you look at it from the Torbjorn perspective, you look at it from the Genji perspective. Either way, this meta is an incredible fit for Shanghai Dragons. And yeah, they're just the better team. They're just the best team in the APAC region overall, and I don't think any other team in the APAC region really stands a chance against them. Even if Guangzhou were to go to the finals over New York, I think this would still be a very comfortable Shanghai Dragons victory. But yeah, this is... Whoops, that's not right. This is my final bracket prediction for the APAC region. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Expect more videos coming soon. I want to do a video talking about the current meta and how it could be played. I'll try and get that one out on Friday if I can. If not, I'll try to upload something else on Friday. Point is, I'll try and get a video up by Friday. I may not be able to, but I'll do my best. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe, maybe leave a comment. I love reading these comments, by the way. There's been some really cool comments. Someone left a comment just detailing what they thought of every team in the NA region. That was really fun to read. So I forget your name. I'm really sorry I forget your name, but thank you so much for leaving that comment. That was really fun to read. And yeah, keep questions coming, keep whatever coming. Post your links to your own brackets. I think you can do that. So yeah. That's about it for this video. Thank you so much for watching.